Moving on to our next panel is on innovations in data collection for probability-based panels, and the chair should not be a surprise to anyone. It's the keynote from last year. Peter, I will hand it off to you.
Thank you, Tara, and welcome everyone from Utrecht, the Netherlands. We have 4 presentations coming up in the next hour or so. I'll introduce every speaker, and we'll take questions and have a short discussion after every presentation. So we'll have 10 minutes for every presentation, followed by 5 to 10 minutes of discussion. I'll keep time. If you have questions during the talk, please use the chat. You can also raise your hand during discussion if you want to follow up on the discussion that we're having, or you want to just ask a question out of the blue. That's all fine. And so without further ado, let's go to the first speaker. So the first speaker is Bella Struminskaya. She is from Utrecht University, and she will be talking about something that I think is relatively new as an issue in survey research, and that is the topic of data donation. So the whole session, as you see here on the slide, is about innovations in data collection, and we'll talk about very different topics, data donation being one of the newer. So I'm hoping, I think Tara is still sharing her screen. So Tara, if you would be able to unshare so that Bella can then share her screen. So Bella, I think the floor is yours. I see your screen. So if you're ready, then the floor is yours.
I hope everyone can share my can see my screen. Sorry. My name is Bella Struminskaya, and also I hope you can hear me. This presentation is a collaboration with Laura Buschatten from Utrecht University, and also 2 researchers, Irene van Driel of the University of Amsterdam and Loes Pauwels from Radboud University, all of us here in the Netherlands. Let me see, the slides are progressing. Yes, so I'll be talking about data donation, and here are some examples. I hope this slide doesn't give you a headache, but this is just this. The purpose is to show how many initiatives are out there which ask people to share their data. So some examples: the NIH, National Institutes of Health, All of Us research program, or Penn Medicine in the US, Open Humans project. In Germany, for example, Robert Koch, which is the German CDC, asking people to donate data from their contact tracing app. In the Netherlands, also Personal Health Train and so forth. So a lot of data are health data, but it doesn't need to be. So the definition of data donation is here, broadly speaking, an active consent to provide researchers with digitally collected data. It can be health records, but it can be also data from digital platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and so forth, but also apps, wearables, and for example, a smart thermostat, so Internet of Things. And often this data is generated for purposes other than research, but can be used for research. So in the European Union, that's possible due to current legislation, General Data Protection Regulation. In other countries, similar legislations where individuals have the access to a copy of their data. And then they can, well, basically download the data and share it with researchers. And many digital platforms provide users with so-called data donation packages. Well, it's nice that this treasure trove can be used for research, but some concerns arise. One of them is representativity. So here, those of you who are familiar with the total survey error framework will recognize some of the aspects. So for example, coverage, not everybody has data to donate. A willingness, not everyone wants to donate this data. And then also not everybody who is willing to donate actually participates. And I will set aside the coverage for now and talk more about participation. So there are some studies out there already about motivations to donate data, but quite few, so not so many. And I have here cherry-picked some of the studies where you can see that the willingness to donate data varies a lot. So from 24% to about 60% of people, and this is from probability-based panels, from non-probability panels, from volunteers. So, and it depends on the data that is asked to donate. What are the reasons for donation? One of them is pro-social behavior. So basically helping researchers a duty and also getting insights into own data. So which is in line with the quantified self paradigm, learning something about oneself. And the reasons for not donating is the not gaining direct benefits from data donation, and also not knowing the consequences of donation. So these are quite similar to reasons not to share or share censor data, sorry, and app data, which my colleagues and I have looked into in the recent years. And the studies that I have been able to locate don't address this, but privacy concerns probably play also a role. So in this presentation, I would like to give you a kind of a case study, if you want, on selectivity and data donation of social media data. So the data comes from Project Awesome. This is adolescents' well-being in social media done by the University of Amsterdam. And the study investigated topics like social media use, well-being, social relationships, self-regulation of teenagers who are aged 13 to 15 years old. And they were recruited at schools. Parents provided consent. So about 400 teenagers were participating in this study. What were they asked to do? They were asked to do surveys, so 16 biweekly surveys over the course of 6 months. Then also ecological momentary assessment, or here experience sampling method, so answering short questions in the moment on their mobiles for 2 times for 2 weeks. So each time was 7 days, and they got six series per day, so 6 questions. And then in the end, at the last wave, they were asked to donate their Instagram data. So of course, also asking if they have Instagram. So the data that they provided was raw, but they were told that it will be de-identified pre-analysis, and actually it was. So their geolocation or their names or their faces or faces of people who were also on the photos were not were anonymized before analyzing. So what did we look at? We wanted to know whether participants who donate their social media data, their Instagram data, are different from those who do not in terms of socio-demographic characteristics and psychological characteristics. Also, whether they're different in terms of their social media use, and lastly, whether their study behavior, so how did they engage with the survey and other parts of the study, played a role. So study design and participation characteristics. So given not so much time, I will just jump right into that, and I'll provide some first descriptive results here. So first of all, 80% indicated to have at least one Instagram account, and out of those, about 32% shared Instagram data. And 4 participants donated but said they didn't have Instagram, so we treat them as if they answered yes to have an Instagram. So here, in terms of demographic characteristics, we look at their sex at the grade level and level of education, and only found some differences in gender. So there was actually a large difference, so 10 percentage points, with females being more likely to donate data. What about social and psychological characteristics? So this is actually what researchers hope to see, or hope to look into using this passive data, this donated data. There we saw that disclosure and secrecy. So if teens, for example, did not tell their parents about what they do on social media, they were also less likely to donate. So those who said yes, more inclined to share with their parents also about their behavior on social media. And for psychological characteristics, maybe somewhat surprising, people with lower self-esteem donated data. So there was a small difference there. Now about social media use, so Instagram use, how many accounts they have or how many followers they have, the likes of their posts, and all of these things were not significant. So their Instagram engagement between those who donated and those who didn't donate did not differ between these groups. Then lastly, what we looked at was the characteristics of their engagement with the survey, so or with the study, and also the devices. So what we saw that with respect to device, Android or iPhone, there were no significant differences, but well, maybe not surprisingly or not surprisingly, people who were more loyal to the study, so people who completed the second experience sampling methods week were more likely to donate. So about the 10 percentage points difference here, and also a small difference in those who completed surveys, so small but significant, were more likely to donate. So what does it mean? To summarize, well, not as many as one would have liked donate their data. There are differences in demographic characteristics, some differences in psychological characteristics, and also study participation, which we have seen also in the app and sensor studies, where, for example, we found a sponsor effect. So basically, this is the effect of trust, and also direct measure of trust in the app and sensor studies for sharing their data. So seems relevant for data donation as well. So privacy concerns and trust needs to be explored more. And one framework could be the framework by Helen Nissenbaum, where people want to know with whom this data is shared and for what purposes. And also just finishing up, last slide, because such a low percentage shares, one could mitigate privacy concerns by only extracting the relevant information. So here with this data donation workflow, there is an additional step, not uploading, so downloading the package to the respondent device, but not uploading it totally, using local processing. What does it mean? Only extracting the variables of interest. So here, an example of the study that we are doing right now in the moment is extracting some relevant information from Google location history data, such as number of hours the person traveled by bike or by car and so forth. Don't be alarmed, these are European commas, so 8 hours, for example, in January 2017, traveled by bike. So only this information extracted. There are some other studies that we are planning or doing, just a little bit of advertisement here. You can, if you like these topics, consider coming to Data Donation Day in Utrecht. It is hybrid, so you can still register online, and I'm out of time. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out by email or through the chat. Thanks you.
Right, thanks a lot, Bella. Questions, go into the chat or simply raise your hand. But as there are no questions, let me take the opportunity to ask you the first question, privilege of the chair. So a question I have is that, have you looked at whether sharing behavior actually kind of depends on the variable you're actually interested in, right, on Instagram behavior? So do you have any signs that, for example, the people that donate their data are very active Instagram users or not? Have you looked at this yet?
We need to still, well, we have a lot of, in this 16 waves of surveys, as you can imagine, there was a lot of information that we gathered. So we just started looking at it right now. And well, some of the information I presented, right? So the engagement with Instagram, but this is definitely something to look into. Also, what I have not talked about is using the mobile phone, using devices, parental control of devices and so forth. So this is something we're looking at as well.
All right, and while we're waiting for people to ask questions, let me ask a follow-up question about this last slide that you presented on local processing of data. So if I understood you correctly, you're doing this now with Google location data, and you didn't do this for the Instagram data, right? So for the Instagram data, you just first collected the data and then you anonymize everything. So I was wondering, would you think do you have any signs from the literature that doing something like this would actually help to get consent rates up?
This is a good question. And this is actually what we are looking into, how to present this information to participants, right? That they are that they are not scared to share even more, so to say. So we want to be transparent, but we also don't want to decrease sharing. So actually, from one of the studies which I did with Peter, we saw that visualizing the Google location on a map had there was a drop of people who said, yes, I'm gonna share my location. And then once they saw this visualization, about 30% of them didn't share, right? So there's a fine line, which we are actually planning some experiments to look into more. So how much information can you present to a participant so that they understand it, comprehend it, so that it's truly informed consent, and that we are being transparent. And also what is useful. So for example, to extract. So if it's only the number of likes from Instagram, that's one thing, right? So you can aggregate it and extract, but how useful is it for researchers? So the geographers with whom we are working also, they say, well, I want to actually have all the data. This local extraction is not going to help me much to answer my questions.
Right. In the meantime, there has been a question in the chat by Ola Fayobi. Ola, can I ask you to just turn on your screen and maybe read out the question that you had live? I can also read it out, but I think—
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, great. Yeah, so thanks for the presentation. So I wanted to find out if you think there will be differences, comparing adult populations to younger populations for data donation. And also secondly, who might be more willing to share, data comparing those two groups?
This is a very good question, Ola. Thank you so much. So one could have different hypotheses, right? So for example, that maybe younger people are not so aware about privacy, or maybe that's the other way around. I think the key thing here is that they were pretty engaged with the study, right? So they participated in multiple surveys. They did this experience sampling method. Also, even more questions. So basically, data donation as a step maybe is not as as unexpected. So I think I don't want to guess any numbers in terms of participation, but I would think that for adults, if there's also similar trust to the organization, people would donate the data. But this is actually an empirical question, whether age or group plays a role there.
All right. In the interest of time, I think we'll have to leave it at this. If at the end of the session, I'm kind of hoping that there will be some time left, so we can actually have a broader discussion about innovations in data collection.
If not, just email me.
Exactly.